Hey, what's going on? It's Quinn David Furness coming to you live from 817 St. Paul Street, the Beantown podcast for Sunday, March 24th, 2019. What's going on? How are you? I am the creator, the host, the producer, all that good stuff of this show. Quinn David Furness presents the Beantown podcast. And we are the People's Podcast. We stand for the people, by the people, and of the people. And we're really here to get a pulse on the heartbeat of the nation. You know, good old-fashioned Americans. What's important to you? What are the issues you're dealing with? I'm sort of a doctor in that sense, a healer through laughter, through comedy, through special guests, interviews, all that good stuff. So I know the letters at the end of my name are Quinn David Furness MS because I am a master of science. But really, I don't know. Just something to consider. I know there are schools out there that will do honorary degrees. Quinn David Furness MD. Maybe the next Doogie Howser. A show I've never seen, but Neil Patrick Harris, unforgettable. We are the People's Podcast, and we are happy to be coming to you live here from 817 St. Paul Street. A quiet weekend here at Homestead. Been watching a lot of college basketball. March Madness kicking into full swing. Wasn't able to do a sort of selection Sunday show because of the way our recording timeline's been lining up. Last couple weeks we've been recording midweek. I know 2 weeks ago we had a dear friend of the podcast, Matthew Fiedler, on the show. I came on, did our taxes. We talked about the Cayman Islands, destination weddings. Really, if you haven't listened to that show, it's totally worth an hour of your life. Probably go back and look it up. I should also mention Beantown Podcast. We are the world's #1 leader in misinformation, probably. Last week, the birthday podcast, always a fun time. That was arguably my favorite podcast from 2018. Had good times again in 2019. As you know, my birthday was physically on last Saturday, 8 days ago, but we ended up recording, I believe, on the Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday. I don't recall which one of those two, because hauling a computer and recording equipments and boom mics and the camera crew and lunch for a crew of production people and the editors and the casting directors and electricians and the best boy, and you got to get a caterer for your caterer. I said, it's too much. It is too much. I don't want to lug all that stuff to Chicago, pay for round-trip flights, yada, yada, yada. So I said, look, I'll just do it myself. We'll do it live. And I did it in the middle of the week. So long story short, it's been like 10 days since I recorded a podcast. I feel fresh, like a phoenix rising from Arizona, and happy to be coming to you live. Listener discretion is advised when you're checking out the Beantown podcast. Number one, we'll occasionally use some anthrosolitical language here. I learned about anthracite. It's a word that a lot of us are probably familiar with. No, it's not. It's not like anthropology. It's also not this. You hear the word anthracite, it kind of makes you think of anthrax, which is another thing that I think we all know about, but we don't quite understand. Anyways, anthracite, I'm doing some, Googling the other day, as I often do. And I'm thinking, what's the difference between anthracite and coal? I don't get it. So I check it out, It's very scientific method. My hypothesis was anthracite and coal are different. Testing. Well, I tested it by Googling the term anthracite and checking out its Wikipedia page. Results. Anthracite is a type of coal. So it's kind of like all toads are frogs, but not all frogs are toads sort of thing. You create a Venn diagram, if you will. And conclusions are that my hypothesis was correct. So I told you early on in the show, I'm a master of science. You just witnessed me just go to town on a very complex question that I broke down into different pieces. This is why, and I've never been asked to be a science tutor before, but I think oftentimes I think I should do it. I worry about a Socrates situation where you're corrupting the youth, but I'm gonna break it down for you. You got to have your hypothesis, you got to have your testing, you got to have your results and your conclusions, and in some circles they'll ask for a literature review. I have always been on the lit review. Here's why. You end up saying a lot of stuff and wasting a lot of time, pages, and energy on stuff that people already know. You're just like setting up the argument, and I'm not a dummy. I understand why it's there, but they're oftentimes just so long that it's not worth it, you know? So depending on which master of science you ask, they might try to trip you up with that lit review, but not me. I go right for the heart of the problem. We spend way too much time dawdling around, talking about the problem. No one ever gets in there and solves the issues, the people's issues. Beantown Podcast, healing the wounds of America, one wound at a time. If you couldn't tell already, I like saying the word wound. Anyways, where were we? March Madness. We are in the second day of the round of 32, so we've had 3 big days already. And I got to tell you, and I should knock on wood for this. Let's see. This was my coffee table. It's from an IKEA. It's from IKEA. It has one of those cool Swedish names. I don't know what it was. I think Bjorn Bjorg or something like that, who was a tennis player. I think there's also an artist, I believe, called Bjork, but I don't really know anything about them. So you got to knock on wood before I say any of this stuff. Let's knock on this one. This is a coaster. It's a thin wood, but it still counts as wood. Let's. What else should we knock on? That is. This is a chair, not the flower chair, but this is a chair with a back that is somewhat broken, but it's still a very sittable chair. I found this in Rogers Park, Chicago. I was strolling through some alleys one day. I think I was dumping my mattress or something, my mattress frame, because I actually have my mattress still. And I stumbled across this chair. It's not a great chair, but it gets the job done. The thing is, because I always sit in the flower chair, it's just kind of a placeholder, like for my backpack or for a pair of pants. Oftentimes I will drape a pair of pants over the back. So I never really sit in it, but it's there, sort of a decorative piece. Yeah, we got that. Other wood to knock on. Before I go any further with what I was about to say, we should find other wood to knock on. This is my, in case you're wondering, my bookshelf. I believe it is sort of a mahogany oak, perhaps. I don't know where this bookshelf came from. We had it in my parents' house when I was like a teenager, but as far as I can remember, this wasn't the type of bookshelf that was like always in our house. So I think it came from some other relative at some point. And I just ended up having it. The thing with bookshelves are they're nice to have and they're nice to put your books on, but unless you're like in academia full time, I don't really, I've had these books on this bookshelf in this apartment for going on like 21 months now. 21 months, they held your arms. And I never use it. So I know the Marie Kondo thing, or there's something else that's like you should have like 10 books at a time or something. That to me is a little overboard. Like there's more than 10 books in the world. I do have a lot of my my piano music in there, but I unfortunately don't get the opportunity to play a lot. But this is my bookshelf. It came with these weird, so just imagine a regular bookshelf with 4 different kind of sections So 3 different horizontal pieces of wood throughout the open face of the shelf for putting said books on. And it came with these like glass covers. Covers is not a good word, but things that you could open up for each section. There's one like piece of glass that you just lift for each section to be able to access the books in there. And they would be on like these rolling things that go deep into the bookshelf. So once you like lift it up, you can push it back into the bookshelf. I remember the first time I moved with this bookshelf, I think it was, it must have been going into my, I don't know. When did I acquire this bookshelf? I have no idea. Sometime before my parents moved to the West Coast. But I remember the first time moving with it and having all these glass shelves, and it was just like a pain in the butt to put them in there. And also these glass things are just like these glass covers, however you want to call them, are just like totally decorative. And they don't really serve a purpose other than protecting the books. But whose books really need protection? So yada, yada, yada. Eventually, I ditched them. I don't know where. I don't know when. At some point in some capacity, I said, hasta la vista, glass. And they're gone. So I don't have them anymore, long story short. But that's that bookshelf. Before I tell you what I'm knocking on wood for, so we're talking about March Madness, here's another piece of wood. This is the flower chair. So kind of a legendary piece here. I have a couple pieces in my apartment that are more than anything else very near and dear to my heart. The flower chair being one of them. Tiger blanket would be another obvious choice. But the flower chair is classic. Always had this growing up in our house. And if you're wondering flower chair, what does that mean? It's just like a very normal armchair, pretty old, never was like an amazing chair, but gets the job done. And it's like cushions and the fabric is a floral pattern. But this baby is so old that it's so like dark and stained and dirty and all this stuff at this point that you can hardly even tell what it actually was. It kind of just looks like camouflage at this point. But for any listeners who have a more in-depth history of this flower chair and they want to share what it actually is, we'd be happy to read that live on the air on a future episode. So if you know anything, please feel free to email us, beantownpodcast@yahoo.com. That's Beantown, BEAN podcast @yahoo.com. And we would love to read that on the air. But this flower chair has been on the L. It has moved from Chicago to the East Coast, and who knows where it came from before it was in Chicago. Certainly Rockford, Illinois, but elsewhere, I would imagine. We should take a break. We should read some advertisements. I talk every single week about how we're going to try to keep this one short, and we never actually do. Well, here's the case today. In case you couldn't tell, I didn't come in with a lot of material to work with. So we're doing a lot of improv. Usually I'll have, if we have interviews, I'll have questions written out and that sort of stuff. If I'm just doing one by myself, though, I'll usually in my phone have written out a number of different topics, or sometimes if I'm doing a bit, write that out a little bit more fleshed out about what we're going to do. We came in today stone cold, nothing. No guidelines, no structures, no skeletons of any talking points, any of that stuff. So I'm pretty happy. In case you're just joining us right now, I'm going to tell you about March Madness, but before I say anything about it, I wanted to knock on wood to kind of cover my ass. So, but let's get to the ads here. Got some sponsors that we're going to hear from. Let me get a sip of my Dunkin' coffee. I almost said Dunkin' Donuts, but I think if you say Dunkin' Donuts, they can sue you for, libel, misrepresentation. I would be liable for libel, and I don't want to be liable for libel. Here we go. Home Pride, Oregon. Are you tired of selling your house for less than a quarter of what it's worth, all because you couldn't find a reliable home inspector in time? Well, Oregon listeners, there's good news. Home Pride Inspection Services in Bend, Oregon is Central Oregon's hottest new home inspection provider with inspection services including things like heating and cooling, roofing, plumbing, and so much more. Home Pride Oregon is both contractor certified and home inspection certified, so you know you're getting the good stuff. If you're tired of big real estate hold on the home inspection market and you want a safe, certified home inspector that you can trust, call Steve at 541-207-1101 or visit homeprideoregon.com. That's 541-207-1101 or visit homeprideoregon.com. Home Pride Oregon. Inspection perfection. So, talking to Dad on the group chat, pardon my stuttering, and turns out we're going to Home Pride Oregon oftentimes now throughout the day to increase your internet points. I don't know how any of that stuff works, but speaking of websites, beantownpodcast.com, latest Beantown podcast. We got the Beantown blog. Other projects we'll put there on the homepage, including the 2019 Oscars monologue. Go check it out. But we're talking about homeprideoregon.com. And I'm tooling around. I like to use tool as a verb, like you're just kind of doing something, but you say I'm tooling around. And I'm tooling around on the homeprideoregon.com website. And I learned that because of the Home Pride Oregon insurance, something like that, 100% money back guarantee, if Steve misses something in the home inspection service, turns out the company that insures him will buy the home for free or something like that. That's crazy talk. That's what Brown can do for you. You remember that slogan from UPS? You never hear that anymore. You also, I feel like, don't see UPS advertise at all. They're losing so badly to FedEx. After Castaway came out, that really just ruined the whole hierarchical order. But so if anybody's looking to take a gamble and get your house bought for free, maybe call Steve from Home Pride Oregon Inspection Services. Is he going to actually miss anything? No. But just having the chance, having that glimmer of hope of getting your home off the market just like that, I don't know. Maybe worth the risk. It's kind of like going to the casino and expecting to turn a profit. No, it's not going to happen. But you have that glimmer of hope, and you got to hold on to hope. So, I want to give a shout out to the Samson Q2U series. Crisp, clean, audio quality all the time. For guys on the go, you got to have a Samson. And just remember, when God speaks, he uses a Samson. The TV Guide, you might be wondering, wow, Quinn, you haven't talked about TV Guide yet. It's one of your biggest sponsors, biggest drivers in year 2 of the show. Well, checked my mail yesterday, and there was no new TV Guide. If you remember from last week, we had the one with Kaylee Cuoco and Jonathan Galecki from The Big Bang Theory, which is inextricably still on the air and finally going off, thank God, after something like 28 seasons. And that was the last TV Guide we got. Nothing new this week. I don't know how I'm supposed to know what's on television this week. And while I don't have a television, if I did, I wouldn't know what was on. So, TV Guide, you kind of dropped the ball. Also, I don't want to get on your case too much about this, but I think it would be a good idea. So the whole Roseanne Barr scandal, whatever she said, I think she was on anthracite or something. The Connors, the revamped Roseanne show, John Goodman going to be the star. So here's my idea for a TV Guide. You have him on the cover. He's sitting in something like the flower chair, but he's got his elbows on his knees. He's kind of bending down a little bit, back bent. He's looking at the camera. He's giving a smirk. He's got the signature Dan Connor curly hair, red, white flannel, because he's an American. And the cover just says, "He's back!" ! The Connors returns to ABC this Tuesday, 8/7 Central. Just an idea. It's not like I host a very successful podcast or anything with big influence. Also, over 300 followers now on Instagram. Hello. Who said that? I did. One more here. Cuts by Q. Bob and weave. We all know the hairstyle. We all love it. But how many Midtown Baltimore-based independent barbers can actually give it to you the way you deserve? Enter Cuts by Q. It's like Enter Sandman, but different. Cuts by Q has been independently owned and operated since 1995, and it's probably one of the better barbershop operations serving Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Cook County, Illinois. From beehives to bangs, faux hawks to flat tops, and everything in between, call Cuts by Q at 815-298-7200 or email cutsbyq@yahoo.com. That's Cuts, Q-U-T-Z by Q at yahoo.com. Oh, when you need a fresh do, something snappy and new, just call the experts at Cuts by Q. All right. That was the advertisements. Thank you to our advertisers, Home Pride, Oregon, Cuts by Q, the Samson Q2U series, and the TV Guide. So I want to get back into this. We were talking about March Madness, and I was going to share with you some exciting news from March Madness in terms of how my bracket is doing. Before I kind of tell you how I'm doing, because I do want to get into March Madness here before we end our time together. But I just, before I say anything, I want to knock on wood. So before I do this, knock on wood. This is my nightstand, something that I think is some sort of maple or a cedar, perhaps, maybe a sequoia. Sequoia is a tough word to spell. S-E-Q-U-I-O-A. Does that sound right? That's 4 vowels in a row. That's crazy talk. Sequoia, is that a Native American word? I don't know. We would need to get an entomologist on the program. But it's a good nightstand. Used to be my mom's. I don't use it for much. I got my alarm clock on the top. You know, this was crazy. I was cleaning, deep spring cleaning my apartment yesterday. Spent better half of 4 or 5 hours doing that. Well, you say the phrase, the expression, the better half. When you say the better half, though, you end up referring to the entirety of the time period that you list. So what is it? Why do we say the better half? It should be the better whole of 4 to 5 hours, but I digest here. It's a good nightstand. I was cleaning the alarm clock. I'm dusting it. I'm giving it the 1-2, the whatever you want to call it, with the Swiffer. And I must have touched some buttons of some kind, because this is crazy. I haven't used this alarm clock for an actual alarm in, I don't know, probably well over a year. I just don't do it. I use my phone. My alarm goes off at 7:01 a.m. this morning, and it's the type of thing where you slowly kind of rise to consciousness out of your sleep. And I'm just thinking, like, this is not my alarm. Like, what sound is this? My phone does not make this sound. And eventually I realized it's coming from my alarm clock, but it was crazy loud and really irritating, so it's a good alarm clock. But I turn it off, and there's really no other big payoff to that story, but I just wanted to let you know that in the process of dusting my alarm clock, I somehow managed to turn my alarm on, set it to 7:01 a.m., and have it go off at a very loud volume this morning. But knock on wood, very important to do. You don't want to mess anything up. You don't want to jinx yourself. Before I say anything about March Madness, I should knock on wood. That's my guitar. In case you're wondering, I believe it is a balsam tree. Balsam, B-A-L-S-A-M, perhaps. It's not a good guitar. In case you couldn't tell from the first year or so of me playing it, it is not a great guitar. I think I purchased it for upwards of $50 on Amazon. It's blue. It has the highest action known to man. So I've actually been thinking about trying to call the Guinness Book of World Records out here to maybe come out and measure the action here, see if this is the highest action of any guitar ever. What it means is that bar chords are like, I've had an easier time getting extra napkins at Subway than I've had trying to play bar chords on this baby. I always feel a little discouraged when I'm playing tunes, when I'm doing some strumming, and it requires bar chords, and I'm unable to get a quality sound because of the high action. But then I, go to someone else's house, go to brothers, whatever, play one of their either acoustics or one of their electrics when your fingers feel like they're in heaven. And the sound quality is great. So I try not to be too hard on myself. But in this discussion of March Madness, before I say what I want to say about March Madness, I should knock on wood. That is my dresser. This thing is a beast. I believe it is Nordic pine, something along those lines, something from the higher subterranean regions of Scandinavia. And this thing is heavy as hell. I've told my moving story before. That was our Farewell to Farwell episode. You can go find it last summer. It would have been at the end of June, I believe. But that is my dresser that I ended up, when I got to Baltimore, getting from the truck up to my apartment by myself. And this thing, I'm not a good estimator of how many pounds something actually weighs, but I mean, this thing's got to be 100 pounds probably, which is just a lot to move. It's one thing to be able to lift 100 pounds. It's another thing to be able to get it out of a truck onto street level, up 5 stairs into the actual apartment complex entrance, up another 5 stairs to where the elevator is, and then across the tile floor of my apartment hallways and into my apartment. That was not fun. There are also like some random nails coming out of the dresser in different ways. So you got to watch out when you're moving dressers by yourself. Always tricky. Call an expert like Quinn, because I've done it. But on this topic of March Madness, there was one other wood that I wanted to knock, but it's my desk and it's really far away. Hey, DePaul Housing Services, if you're looking for a desk, I might have an extra one that I may or may not have lifted from one of your residence halls, but I digest here. I've had a hard time speaking today. But March Madness, here's the news. Taking some hits, round of 64. Kansas State, I had them in the Sweet 16, so they lost. But that was my only Sweet 16 team that got knocked out in the first round. Round of 32. First day was yesterday. I was in good shape to start the day, and then right at the end, things not necessarily crumbled, but I took 2 gut punches that I was not happy about. I took Nova over Purdue. We all know what happened there. That was an absolute shit show. And I also took, who was the other team I had in the Sweet 16 that lost yesterday? Now we got to look it up. I was so amped to talk about this, and then I started knocking on wood, and next thing you know, it's all over. Who did I have? Kentucky, Houston. Oh, I had Kansas. That's right. 2 teams that got absolutely ass-whipped. Apologies for my language. Nova and Kansas. And Kansas, that was a 4-5 matchup, so technically an upset, losing to Auburn, but depending on who you ask, not really. Nova was an upset pick. I took the only one of the day, 6/3. Purdue's a 3. But seriously, and I know a lot of people feel this way, if you're losing 2 Sweet 16 picks because Nova and Kansas lose, I'm not feeling too bad about that, considering those have been like perennial powerhouses in the last 5 years of college basketball. So I'm down 3 Sweet 16s, Kansas State, and Nova. I have, what do I have then? I have 5 that are locked in. Does that sound right? No, I got 6. I got 6 locked in yesterday. So 6 yes, 3 no. It means I've got another 7 going today. So 7 out of the 8 games I have potential for punching in correct Sweet 16 picks. The scary thing, though, is I have 5 of my lead 8 picks going today. I have Duke, UNC, UVA, Houston, and Tennessee. And the first game of the day, Tennessee versus Iowa, that's a national championship game pick for me. I've got UTK losing to Michigan State. So I will be very nervous come around 12:15 Eastern time here when that game tips off. But so far, we're in really good shape. Right at the top of all 4 of my different leagues that I'm part of. A lot of people do like a different bracket for each one of their leagues, or some people do multiple brackets in each league. They pay out more for that. I'm a straight shooter. I am a traditionalist. I fill out one bracket. I use that bracket for all 4 leagues. So we are either going to win big, or we are either going to lose big, or what's more likely is like the 95% chance that you're somewhere in between and you still lose your money, but you actually look decent on paper. You're just not at the top. That's probably where we're going to end up. But we're in good shape right now. Elite 8 still intact. At the end of the day, that's what matters. Nice to keep your Sweet 16 as sterling condition as you can, but you know, if I what do I have 7 going today? If I can get 5 of those right, then I think that's 11 out of 16. Not amazing, but better than I usually do. Usually I am down at least 1 or 2 Elite 8 picks by this point. And we're still in good shape. So there's that. That's what we wanted to say to you today. Thanks everyone for listening. A little bit of a shorter episode. I hope that works for you all. Don't forget to like us, share us, whatever you want to do to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, not CastBox yet, but anywhere else where podcasts are listened to. Unless we're not there, you can find us. That's going to be a wrap. On Sunday, March 24th, we will come to you next weekend live from Chicago. Beautiful city. Happy to be back. Should be a good time. Looking forward to recording it out there. Good chance we're joined by a guest or 2. That tends to be the case when you're hitting the road. So doing a show from Chicago should be a good time. So special thanks to all the wood in my apartment. And this has been Quinn David Furness coming to you live from 817 St. Paul Street, Beantown Podcast, the People's Podcast, one of Baltimore City's top 500 podcasts, your number one source for misinformation, probably. Thank you to our sponsors. I am going to drink my Dunkin' and going to do a little family chat here on the phone, and then going to watch a whole lot of college basketball. So thanks for listening to my podcast. Hope everyone has a good week. Be kind to one another. Maybe I can usurp Ellen's phrase. Maybe I'll get sued for being liable for libel. Who knows? But have a good day. Have a good week, and we will check in on you next time.